love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out, maybe it's the chemistry. It's time to break up so I can make a better me. Better believe in your mind, cause it's everything. You can mold, shape, find almost anything. All it takes is some time and some clarity to find your identity. It's mind over everything. And when I feel like this, I'm immortal. 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 Don't stop, just give me up. Turning back, I won't stop, I'ma fight until there's nothing left. It's so what? You're gonna be hurting bad, cause I've been to hell and back. You don't wanna make me mad, I stay strong, you will never see me crack. And if you get in my way, you gonna feel the wrath. Gotta say it to my face while he's looking back. Mirror breaks after math, when I hate, I attack. And when I feel like this, I'm immortal. 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 Don't stop, just give me up.
As you can see, boys and girls, first of all, happy Friday, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Now you're actually able to see behind the scenes of the channel how things are being handled while I'm getting the live prepped and everything is going on. By the way, those who don't know, I'm now currently on vacation at Bulgaria at an undisclosed location. It is absolutely phenomenal here. You can see the scenery right here. If it will kind of show up, I really done my best to show up here and show you the scenery where I'm staying. Undisclosed location, yeah, secret location, but check this out. It's absolutely phenomenal. The weather is beautiful beyond description. It's just absolute pleasure to stay here. By the way, shout out to my hosts. Not gonna dox them, but absolutely amazing people. Absolute pleasure to stay with them, just treating me like a king and more so like a god, in fact. Now let's go over the price action so we'll have even a better Friday. Today's not all that surprising. Some people may see this as downwards, upwards. It really doesn't matter. Let's be objective. By the way, I hope I'm not being stupid. Everything is running well here. So as you can see, we're kind of really moving sideways. As soon as you zoom out, first of all, something nice obviously that happened. We ended up closing a couple of leftover gaps throughout these movements in the last several days, so we're more or less free to go downwards right now. But really the price action hasn't been too accommodating in terms of the sentiment, the news, the noise, whatever you want to call it, whatever is going on right now in the media sphere. In realistic terms, something I have predicted and warned about is increasing oil prices. The real question is whether we're finally going to break out of this mold, out of this channel we've been moving within the framework of. In fact, if you're more objective, you're going to realize that what's going on here, we're kind of moving into this wedge formation, of course, with higher slippage whenever we find big oil reserves. Not a big surprise. Destabilization of the price action or on the overall sort of trend, nothing that substantial, right? But it seems that we're currently moving into this almost wedge-like formation. The momentum right now, as you can objectively see, is bullish, so it will appear that we may retest that 78.96 within the short term, within the following sessions, because we're currently looking on the weekly time frame, so it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen, of course, within today, but probably within the following sessions. Pardon me for all the noise that's going on here off of the side. Now, we're kind of moving within the short-term channel, as we're potentially going to expect it to move sideways, at least throughout the day. We don't expect any substantial movements unless Trump decides to nuke Iran or something of that sort. Guys, I mean, let's adult here for a second, right? I mean, obviously the geopolitical tensions are affecting what is happening right now in the oil prices, but how come I was able to predict the oil prices rallying higher before it ever happened? By the way, if you just Google it and you see what Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan is saying right now, you'll realize he's actually confirming that. And in fact, seeing as high as $130 a barrel prices coming in. Of course, it's not going to happen, not tomorrow, of course, but not even over the weekend, nor just within a week or two. We are coming to a closure of, most of the market, of course. When it comes to the time frame, the cyclical time frame, the day, the weekly is coming to an end, of course, within, next week, basically. What's going to happen next week. But I want to point out that next week we're going to have something more interesting going on. We have basically no days left. On the 30th, actually, on the last final day of the month, on the 30th, we're going to be closing several candlesticks, several very important ones. Of course, the monthly will be locked by that point, so it's not next week, it's the next week after that, so pretty soon. What we're going to be seeing is a closure and a lockdown of the 3 months candlestick, of course the monthly subsequently, and the 6 months will be closing as well. So the half year will be coming to a lock. Basically, this price action, as you can see, is not too impressive. It does not look all too bullish. Of course, it's not all that bearish. We still have those 10 days. And within 10 days, a lot of things that can happen. In fact, the best way to lock in a particular move that you want to lock in, let's say they want more of a bearish outcome, the best way to lock it in, do it in the final days. So then there is no time to retaliate against it and push the market higher to close the candlestick any different. So think about that little interesting thing. Now, let's go over the time frames as we usually do. Let's go over and see what the S&P is saying. I mean, it's pretty simple and pretty evident. We spoke about this in the community many times, how when smaller gaps on the daily time frame, on the shorter time frames open up, they usually tend to close up within the following session, at least if not the following sessions. This was very close, very tame, and just a retest of the very same sort of levels that we've seen being retested before, so nothing all that surprising. Pardon me, kind of more like this. Really, again, nothing all that substantial. More so sideways price action, at least that's what we're identifying on the 1 minute. Nothing crazy. On the 5 minutes, it is retesting currently the bottom of the channels. You can see the short range channels being currently retested. But the real thing is that we are now oversold in, we're bearish and oversold conditions. We're not bearish objectively we're bullish, but this tight price action, sort of this tight behavior on the stochastic RSI means with this price action, it's far more likely it's going to continue downward. So this session, at least right now as it stands, potentially going to continue and deteriorate towards 59.5306 right there, maybe even further lower. Right now, that's the near-term support, potentially even 59.40 and 59.38. This is the closer range that may be retested very shortly within the following session, as we said. 30 minutes is confirming we're now full-on bearish within the framework of the sold area, basically below the 50. We're not fully oversold. Basically, we're now just kind of going through this process of generating downwards pressure, which means with this low that appears to be in conjunction and confluence with 59, 53 right there. So sets right about perfectly. I would say this probably will happen again. This is more of a confirmation for what we're expecting to see within the session, within the following hours. 45 minutes is in confirmation and confluence with the previous time frames as well. As you can see, we're now bearish below the 50, going downwards with very distinct and obvious downtrend. Now 1 hour. 1 hour is taming down. It's not full force bearish, but it is of course bearish dominant. Why we're saying it's not in full force? Because you see the angle has transitioned from being yay steep. Now it kind of tamed down, and now is a little bit kind of slower, right? Moving still downwards, but not as sharp as it was before. 4 hours. 4 hours is actually in oversold conditions already, going to convergence. So that probably means we may see Monday open up. If we have a trading session, if I'm not mistaken, we have a trading session. It's only the 19th that was off. And we're potentially going to see sort of retest of that sort of lower lows that we were seeing earlier throughout the month of June. Roughly in confluence with these support and resistance levels. This is the bottom of the range right here, the current channel, the short range channel we're moving within the framework of. Let's see if we can make the larger one appear. And as I told you all along, it may appear as we've been actually going somewhere, but really we've been kind of moving sideways all along. It's kind of flat from a more zoomed out standpoint, right? To be more objective about things. In fact, we're still creating, as you can see, a lower high. This is in fact a lower high, right? As you can see, still is. No matter, even if it's by a tiny little bit or by a lot, or depends how much you choose to zoom in, it really doesn't matter. The technicals, that's how they work. Bottom line is, if this is lower, this is lower. Numbers do not lie. That's the beauty of what we're doing here. Data rely on sort of analysis, and then it cannot just, data-driven analysis, so it just cannot mislead you, as long as you stay patient and follow the course. Now, let's see. On the daily, we are still very, very bearish. Now moved into oversold territory. This is something I was talking to my friend Shidard, my main host, my friend here that is hosting me here in Bulgaria. Something we spoke about just earlier today. And we were saying basically how the market appears to be getting ready to have that final step of the move right here before it continues lower, maybe potentially closing some gaps that we have left around 5,800 right there, and then continuing basically lower. This is the beginning. We may see a structure of a head and shoulders that is hidden right here. Kind of, you can see potentially some sort of head and shoulder formation. Doesn't have to be all that identical nor so symmetrical. I'm just giving here a rough sketch example just to paint the picture, get the idea through. Now, what else are we seeing? If we're going to transition to our weekly, we're going to see that we're nowhere near the bottom of the short-term range. In fact, there's a lot ways to go. We're probably going to be looking at 5,700 right here, kind of 56, because of course some slippage from 5,700 is immediately 5,690, that sort of handle, right? Immediately that the main support we already retested multiple times and identified within the framework of the price action is of course 5,500, 55.55. It's more of a psychological level, just kind of a pretty number, if you will. Really what it is, it's more of an artificial level, but it still is quite strong, so it's not going to be all that surprising. When we pass through another time, we'll end up retesting between that level and that 5423.20, which is a technical level, and we've seen it come to fruition many times before, being retested throughout all these months on the smaller time frames. On the monthly, of course, monthly is very important. As we said, we're potentially going to see some confluence of the forces right here at the 20 range before we actually continue into oversold conditions, which is kind of normal. And I warned there will be some sort of stagnation and a borderline just nothingness in the market. I mean, the market is giving us a lot of nothingness, but while doing that in a very volatile fashion, believe it or not, this is actually very beneficial for the market makers, for the institutions, simply because they trade both ways. They trade down, they trade up. It's just kind of taking, taking off the fruit at the right time on the right sort of crop, right? They are in all crops, and just, when the timing is right, they yield the one that is currently in profit, while the other one may be losing, but that's what the hedge is all about, right? Knowing when to execute these hedges is also quite important. Now, if we're looking at the 3 months, which we will be getting locked as well, the real sort of secret is hidden, in fact, in the indicators. It's showing that lack of divergence, in fact, how close the levels are. You can see through the numbers right here, 76.14, 75.43. In fact, how close these levels are indicates so how very close the forces are right now running at this stage. And normally, as you know, there are only two forces to be played with here. It's either bullish or bearish. And right now, as we're running towards the end of the momentum, and as you can see, very, very interestingly, kind of at the very same level or the same amount of money, liquidity that is being used. Well, it appears to be sort of for that duration that is enough to overturn us. Rather, it doesn't have to be similar amount of liquidity, but rather more so a relative similar amount of liquidity to throw us over the edge and say, guys, we're not putting any more money in. Simply, we're too afraid to buy right now, and there's a lot more selling will be coming, sort of taking over these indicators and showing us that really we're far more bearish than bullish. What these indicators have been saying all along is that there is as much selling going on as there is as much as buying, and so really there is almost a transition or a transfer of these assets, right, from one end of the market to the other. Just kind of give it a little thought, you'll understand what I'm trying to hint there. Hint. 6 months. 6 months is crossing right above that 50 range. That is not exactly how I've predicted this to be. I thought we're going to have a little bit of a crossing slightly lower. If it takes longer, it's not all that surprising, especially with Trump's administration being also unpredictable and all sort of recent events, the market being thrashed around up and down. At the end of the day, if you're going to follow the channels and the way the price action works, it is pretty simple. We've slid out completely because, well, the market was completely out of balance for various actions by the Fed, the government itself. You just choose. Basically, we've done all sorts of stupid things, a whole array of them. And now we're going through a rebalancing period. Guess what? Rebalancing is painful and very, very, very long. In fact, if we cause the damage that we cause can be made within, I don't know, X amount of time, then the correction may take roughly half of that period, potentially, up to as long as. It doesn't necessarily mean, yes, corrections are pretty quick within the way the process itself happens, but don't forget we can move sideways for quite a long time. And if the market does go through stagflation for the various reasons, basically if it's Trump's beautiful bill passing, if not, then taxing everybody, what is that, 56%, 60 something, I don't even remember, some stupid numbers. Well, guess what? Well, if you're gonna add up into your national debt 5 trillion and maybe even higher than that, and inflation is through the roof and people cannot be purchasing anything, you will not be fixing the economy very rapidly. Okay, and well, guess what? If you're gonna have low interest rates, supposedly it's so also nice, but well, guess what? You're not gonna get borrowing at low rates anyway. You're not gonna get the rates you want to, right? You're gonna get sort of these unbalanced rates that make you not want to borrow. You don't know if you're going to be able to pay it back even. Delinquencies will skyrocket. People will definitely not be able to afford mortgages, so the housing market will be in pain. So where's the money going to be coming from exactly? So you see, there's so much going on. And I'm not even talking about the individual equities, individual companies, how unrelated the price action or the stock price can be out from what the company is doing, and because of the cyclical nature of the market, which is tremendously important to know about. And if you don't know about it, you simply cannot be aware nor be looking out for something you're not aware of. And so I remind you again, boys and girls, oil is correlated to everything. It is almost at the center of everything. So don't forget, I mean, there's a reason we call it the petrodollar, right? And if oil is skyrocketing, the dollar is not doing well anyways, and the US, these Trumps wants a cheaper dollar, we're going to have a very imbalanced situation. And you definitely don't want to have that when the US economy overall is suffering and there is no new money that is flowing in. And all nice sorts of promises that people will invest and do this and that. And even that takes time, right? I mean, you don't heal immediately as you take the medicine. Normally it takes a little while until you actually start feeling better, right? So basically we are far away, and this process is just merely the beginning of. And what you're seeing right now is actually a very stagnant, sort of boring side of the process. You can almost see how the momentum went from being very, very high, very steep, very rapid, to almost shrinking down to nothing. And right now we're basically moving within this very narrow band range, almost sideways, until we completely run out of momentum. And guess what? Just like a plane running out of momentum up in the sky, starts falling. So we're not all that far. It is a little bit boring and just kind of tedious to wait, I know, and I've warned about how tedious the whole process may look like, right? And in this instance, in fact, we're still going to correct right here and then continue upwards. And this instance, unfortunately, is going to be very, very different. We are going to be continuing downward just to retest these lows. So basically, as you can see, the structure is not as it may be appearing when you're zoomed in. You have to zoom out and identify that really this is a lower high. That even oil, for example, cannot just rally up to the moon and even has a processes of rebalances, right? Everything has this almost gradual nature to it, right? That's it, boys and girls. This is, I think, everything I wanted to bring you all up to speed. In fact, we can see that correction coming in right here. We can see how we're sort of drowning downwards into this, maybe moving sideways, maybe some retest, but overall, we're not doing anything sort of so dramatic for for oil prices to go any lower than this. And essentially, as we've been predicting, potentially retesting that 78.96, which you can literally call 79 or 80, because being a psychological level. And by the way, as you cross 80, the profit margins of the various companies, basically their spending based upon oil and oil derivative products increase, and and they make a lot less. Their bottom line basically shrinks. So as you can imagine, increasing oil prices are not great for everyone. And of course, this is a very gradual process. And those of you who are more sharp-eyed identified what I'm trying to hint here. Wink, wink, which, by the way, internally has a wink, wink, right? This is just how things work, boys and girls. And eventually, when we're going to complete this process, of course, we're going to go even further higher than 78.96. But right now, still, there will be a corrective process right there. Remember, the higher level will be probably every single dollar ranging from 80 all the way to 95. 95 will be stronger than the rest of the levels, but yes, every single dollar, boys and girls, because every single dollar hurts the market more and more and more and more. That's it, boys and girls. I think that's all I wanted to bring you all up to speed about. It is very interesting how things are panning out, and we kind of did expect things to work out this way. I did say that I don't know whether things will start collapsing because of oil prices, because of geopolitical instability, because of the cyclical things, side of things. It really doesn't matter. The plan, the technical analysis, again, it's driven by numbers. It driven by the cyclicality and by the institutions which are far more aware than the average person, who then can they affect and play into these cycles. And guess what? Just like a snowball, if you roll it down the hill, guess what? It's not going to fly up into the sky. It's going to continue rolling in the direction and the path that was expected. And just physics. Boys and girls, it's all that simple. Come on. Come on! It's all obvious. It's all there on the screen, and so every time you see a little bit of higher price action on a daily time frame or a 5-minute time frame, it really is meaningless. The overall cycle and the overall sort of nature of what the market is really doing is far more important than what you're actually seeing on that 5 to 10 minute or 45 or even an hour time basis. That's it, boys and girls. Again, final time. Love you all. Let me just close this. By the way, in fact, before I go, a shout out to my community. Of course, in the amazing Discord. Definitely, in fact, let me use this final moment before I go to show off that one little thing. I'm almost, here we go. Enjoy this beautiful thing. I still have 2 spots for the tutoring. I am currently not going to be teaching. I will be teaching once I go back from abroad, or at least decide how things will look for me in the final days here, or at least in the following weeks from now on. But definitely do join the Patreon. That way you will be in the know. By the way, hi all. I hope I'm so sorry I wasn't able to follow up on the chat simultaneously. I don't have as many screens as I normally do, and it's just going to be very messy to try and do everything simultaneously, juggle too many balls at the same time. That's it, boys and girls. I hope that this was informative and good for you. And I will see you on the next one. Of course, I'll try and do a little bit more than I've been doing in the last days. I know I've been a little bit behind on the meetings, but as you can see, the members, by the way, definitely join. This is the way to join. Go to patreon.com/investory. That will have these two tiers. And by the way, if you do pay annually, that way you end up paying $48 a month instead of $60, $24 instead of $30, and you'll get a whole array of perks. These are just a small portion of. And with the one-on-one academy, by the way, not just me tutoring you, you'll get basically all of that and then some, and you'll get it for life, and you don't have to pay anything extra. It's just the initial payment for the academy, which is eventually when the price action of the SPX will drop lower to 4,000. The price of the academy will be going from $3,500 to $4,000. So definitely hurry up, sign up right now before it does happen. You miss out and then you say, but Greg, I wanted to. So don't tell me about how you wanted to. Sign up right now. Don't miss out. Start your journey before it's too late. That's it, boys and girls. Love you all. This is it.